Hi, we are Team Orange. Today, Minja, Hemi, and I will talk about our current progress on the metahuman assets in regard to our research questions raised in the last week's prompt, and discuss about things that we are planning to do in the next following days. Here's an overview of our research questions so far. First, how to animate the facial expressions for provoking meaning. Second, how to use the capturing software like Leveling on iPhone to produce videos or to create animations by hand. Third, how do we replicate emotions by hand in Metahumans? Fourth, can we use Metahumans as the default player in Unreal that would move as a controller or generic controls like in VR? So for question one, we watched the Indian dance video clip, which is called a Kathakali, and we found there are several elements that are essential to produce the meanings. First, the actors are transferring the emotion. Meantime, they invoke the empathy from the audience. Additionally, they also has a scenario or a background story which might support or to be the reason for the emotion transferred in the progress. Here are several screenshots that I took from the Kathakali videos, which we could see it shows the sadness, shyness, or anger of the actors. They also have a lot of a couple of interesting facial expressions. Okay, moving on to question two, we separate it into two parts, which are facial animation and body animation. For facial animation, we could use leveling to directly produce facial animation from the streaming of the people's facial expression. And for body animation, we could use either deep motion or rococo to capture the movement of the body. In speaking of the leveling, it's pretty convenient for iOS devices to connect with the Unreal Engine. There are several steps on how to do this. First, like enabling some plugins such as the leveling and leveling control rig and Apple ArcKit face support, and then open the leveling app and add the IP address of the computer. We could also enable the head rotations. Note, the computer and the devices that we use need to be on the same internet. Also, in the Unreal Engine, we could select the leveling face subject to the connected iOS devices, and then we're done. We could then stream the facial expressions to create the facial animations in the Unreal Engine. But this method also has limitations. It can only produce facial animations, and it can only support iOS devices. Here are several examples that I created using the leveling and take recorder in the Unreal Engine 4 based on the Kathakali video clips. We could take a look. Here's another one. Yeah, these are all facial expressions from the Kathakali dance. I still have problem exporting these sequence to a real video, which I need to figure out in the following days. Next, Hemming will explain about the body animation part using Rococo and deep motion.
Hey guys, I'm Hamin. I'm going to give a brief introduction to Rococo Studio and Deep Motion in this section. These are two good tools you can use to achieve body motion for MetaHuman. First, for Rococo Studio, there are two choices. If you have a motion capture suit, you probably prefer the first choice, which is doing the real-time or recorded motion capture. In the Rococo Studio, there is a Wi-Fi setup for mocap suit to connect with the Rococo Studio. Since I do not have a motion capture suit, I'm gonna choose the second method, which is to use the sample motions or motion library to do the animation. So this is a sample to do the motion capture in MetaHuman with Rococo. And since I've already retargeted the MetaHuman with the Rococo model SAM in Unreal Engine, so the only thing I need to do is to create a live link between Rococo Studio and UE4. And now if I click play, you can see that the MetaHuman is doing exactly the same animation with SAM. The advantage of Rococo Studio is that it can also do facial animation and hand animation if these data are included in the animation asset. So if you have mocap suits in your home, Rococo Studio could be a good choice to do motion capture. So another tool you might want to look into is the Deep Motion. It is a really convenient tool where you just update a video of animations on this website, and it will be processed and converted into a FBX animation file. This is a project I made by uploading a clip of ballet dance. It is not perfect, but I believe you can use the control rig and the of a MetaHuman to make some slight modifications by hand, which will be introduced by Minjia later. And though it cannot process face animation and hand animation, it can process the full body animation accurately. So next, Minjia will introduce how to use control rig to replicate the MetaHuman by hand.
Hello, I'm Mingjia. Our third question is, how do we replicate emotions by hand in MetaHumans? We created face and body animations by control rig. The advantage of control rig is it can create specific and coherent animations. However, it's hard to control subtle movements by using control rig. This is the window that contains control rig. As we can see, there are body and face control rigs here. We can control every part of a MetaHuman's body by using control rig and create animation in sequencer. After expanding the control rigs, for example, this is the body one. We can see that there are various body parts here. If we expand the body part, we can see their relative locations. We can either change the parameters here or drag the translators to move the body part. These red points represent the locations of each body part at different times in the timeline. By adding the red points, we form an animation. This is an example of face animation. And this is another simple example of body animation. This is the exported video, so this should be how the animation looks like after exporting. Yeah, so this just contains simple neck movements. And we can also move other body parts like arms and legs as well. As I mentioned before, there are some shortcomings of control rig. Let's see this video first. This is a finger animation created by Control Rig. It's a bit deformed since we need to adjust the locations by hand. It would be hard to control the subtle movements. So to solve this problem, we will use Glycon 3D and VR Rig to make finger animations in the next step. Han-Ming will introduce the fourth question for us.
The research question 4 is to explore whether we can use MetaHuman as a default player. The key problem here is how to change the default player into MetaHuman. What I did is to import a MetaHuman in a third-person project and change the meshes and the skeletons of the default player into MetaHuman. The whole procedure is not complicated, and these are 2 screenshots of how it looks like in some scenarios. And I'm going to show the whole project of how it looks like. But right now, the MetaHuman can only run and jump, which is the default function of a character in the third-person project. It cannot attack, cannot defend. So yeah, that's how to manipulate MetaHuman in a third-person project with controller. And our next step is to explore more and apply the techniques above. For example, figure out how to export facial animations using live link and sequence take recorder, use Glycon and VR Rig to create finger animation, decide the storyline and scenario, combine facial and body animation into a whole project, and make a short animation. So that was what we wanted to share with you. I hope we can make more progress in the following weeks. And yeah, thank you.